Hi, this is Greg Weeks, and I'm going over Sprint 1 for the Centipede game. So I'm just going to test out all the features right here as they stand, just so you can get a general idea of how the game is working. Got collisions working, bullet is working, the player movement is working. Now you can't tell if I'm lying to you, but there is one bullet on the screen at all times, and the player can't go out of these bounds. So let's check out the player first. Just defining the player area. So if I hold down shift, I can actually see the grid position of the player, update in real time there. I can step along each one just to test. So you see at the bottom right hand corner, it's at 29, 39. And if we go all the way over here, we're at 0 and 30. So the player area is the bottom 10 rows of the grid here. And as for the way that the player is actually being controlled, I've got an input.cpp, which is basically just taking from this enum here, which is controls. So up, down, left, right, shoot, and none to define the null controls. So yeah, right here, we're not using keyboard input, we're using this sort of modular input so that in the future, I can have a different function for a joystick or something like that. Alright, so let's move on to the bullet. Essentially, I just have a pointer to a single bullet coming from ship. And I can modify that with a linked list. So right now, you see next equals 0. So I've started to implement a linked list of the bullets, and I have a plan to sort of have multiple bullets if the need arises. So this if statement right here is just calling new bullet once, so there's only one bullet object, and all that it's doing is resetting its position. So in the mushroom class, before we call the register collision and deregister input, I'm taking a reference to the generator itself and calling remove shroom, and that's just going to output the current count of the mushrooms. So we can check that here. Okay, so right now, you can see at the bottom of the screen here, we have 137. And now we have 136. So it does take 4 shots, 1, 2, 3, 4 to destroy a mushroom. We have 135, so that looks like it's working correctly. So I'm going to restart the game yet again, just so you can see how I implemented the collisions with the actual player object. So I'm actually checking the position of the mushroom and the position of the player, plus and minus 5 depending on the direction to sort of get that ghosting effect in between the mushrooms. Also, I am deregistering the collision on the bullet itself, so that the bullet collision with the mushroom is only registered when I'm actually shooting. So now let's see what we've got. So I've got these 3 Boolean variables, and I really don't want to do it this way, and I understand that I made a note here that I need to check the previous position, so I'm going to implement that soon, but for now, this works as intended, and I think that's a good place to stop.